What is going on, guys? My name is Jack McNeil of Baseball Essential, joined by Alan Jaeger, Jaeger Sports website and Twitter there, plugging that, and Jeff Snider of Baseball Essential. Now, I got to point out a few things. First of all, you've been on Jeff's podcast recently, not too recently, but fun time indeed. And the winter meetings, this is our first time Baseball Essential. It was very cool because we're standing behind the MLB Network set. We see the back of someone's head, and I'm like, I think that might look familiar. We've never met. I noticed a BlackBerry. Businessman. That's Alan Jaeger right there. The BlackBerry gave it away.
Yeah.
And now we're here. So speak a little bit on the winter meetings, being able to connect with whether it's clients, players you worked with, people in the game of baseball once a year. Kind of a very cool meeting indeed. So speak a little bit about seeing all these people and reconnecting.
Yeah, I think this reminds me a lot of the ABCA show. When you come here and exactly what you said, you run into people like you guys, and it's just neat because, as you said, you may not see somebody for an entire year. You may not see somebody for 2 years, or you may have had a relationship with somebody on the phone for more than that. But it's just a hub, as you guys know, and it's just exciting because it could be someone in a professional organization, it could be a player, it could be an agent, it could be someone with a baseball card company.
Right.
And as you guys know, there's just a vibe here that is just really cool.
Absolutely. Now, you've been traveling a lot recently, the Pitchapalooza you spoke at, you visited college as well. So tell me a little bit about your week-long travels and what you've kind of picked up from that. And are you ready to go back to your home, California?
Yes, and but I've had an unbelievable trip. So I flew into Atlanta. Atlanta had the equivalent of the ABCA show. It's called the NFCA for softball, and it's the biggest show of the year, and it rotates like the ABCA show. And so one of my dear friends is Butch Thompson, who just got the head job at Auburn. And so I decided to fly in Atlanta a little early, spent a couple days in Auburn. We say broke it down. But, we got to meet the new coaching staff. I got to go hang out at the softball area where Clint Myers, who was a really well-respected baseball coach in Central Arizona, has now just turned that Auburn program around. I think he went to the College World Series. Someone said the first year he took over Auburn's. And his kids are there. And so then we went to Atlanta, and we had a booth there. And Monica Abbott's like our spokesperson, if you will, in softball, and she's just unbelievable and has helped us out so much. And then after that, I drove just a few miles outside of Nashville to Franklin, and the Lance Wheeler's Pitchapalooza, which is just an unbelievable event. Eric Cressy was there, Kyle Boddy was there, Tim Dixon spoke, Butch Thompson spoke, Wes Anderson, the new coach at Mississippi State, spoke. I think Roger Williams from Louisville was there, so it was a great lineup. I got to do a mental talk, which is near and dear to my heart, and then a kind of a throwing deal. And then here I am, bumping into you guys.
So now you're ready to go back to California?
I am, but there's something. I know traveling can be tiring, as you guys know, but traveling's exciting. The bottom line is, you're in a beautiful, different part of the world, and Nashville's beautiful. And as I told you guys a few minutes ago, we get down to Broadway, and it's just a special street, a special area. And I also, I forgot another part of my trip. I spent yesterday over at Vanderbilt University. I'm very close with that program. I played tennis this morning with Maggie Corbett. Now I'm name dropping, but Tim's wife and her and I were like, we have this tennis connection. And then last night I was at dinner with the coaches that finished up the Vandy camp, and I got to spend some time with Scott Brown, the pitching coach, who's just one of the real great guys in coaching. And so, as much as I do want to, on one hand, go home, like we all do at some point at the end of the trip, there is something still about, you're on the road. Us having this conversation right now.
Exactly.
Well, I moved out of Southern California about 20 years ago, and I've been ready to go back for about...
It's calling you.
About 20 years.
It's calling you.
Yeah. So let's talk a little bit about Jaeger Sports. You're kind of known for really two things. There's the J-bands that people see, that you see the pitchers stretching their arms out with these rubber bands, basically big, strong rubber bands. And then there's your long toss program, which when you and I talked on our podcast several months ago, it just fascinated me. As you remember, I have an 8-year-old son, and so thinking of him, he's really into baseball and enjoying it. And ever since you and I talked, I've had him. I said, okay, let's. Just playing catch is fun, but let's do a little bit more long toss. We've got a big backyard. Let's put that to use. And so, because I remember your joke, you said 120 feet is great if you're 8 years old. Well, my son's 8 years old, and my backyard's about 120 feet long. So we've been doing that. So
and hopefully he outgrows that real soon too.
Yeah, and he's a big 8-year-old. So yeah, he could be going further. We're going to have to have to start using the side yard too.
Take the horse out of the barn
Yeah.
and let's see where it runs, right?
I like that phrase that you use, take the horse out of the barn. And
Yeah.
why don't you tell a little bit about the philosophy behind long toss and why 120 feet just isn't enough for a major league pitcher?
Yeah, well, I mean, for me, long toss is as much a visceral and even intuitive feeling that you get as an athlete. I get as a human being. I mean, you don't. If someone said pick up a ball, you know, the first thing you're going to do is just lob it to get your arm kind of stretched out. And so symbolically, long toss is nothing more than, you know, first knowing how to stretch your arm out and get some range of motion and feel and freedom and looseness in your arm before you get aggressive. It's like anything you do in life. You know, you walk and jog before you sprint. So the idea to our program is just to really, you know, long toss has been around forever. I think we've just put a spin on it to where we've really given it kind of a face. Like, hey, this is kind of how you go out. This is how you come in. And by the way, you don't just go out as far as you can and come in as hard as you can day one. You know, it's a 4 to 5 to 6 week build-up, you know, for the older guys. Maybe the younger guys might be 3 to 4 weeks. But, you know, essentially it's really, like I said, that, you know, and then I guess if you really wanted to answer that question most specifically, long toss is a going out phase called the stretching up phase, which is all about arcing the ball on the way out. And in the coming in phase, we call the strengthening, or the pull down phase, which is taking that arc and slowly bringing it back down without decelerating or diminishing the intent of your furthest throw. And that's something that's a huge piece. And the 120, I guess while we're talking about the long toss, the 120 is an arbitrary number that really was more of a medically based number that came out of the rehab mentality probably in the 70s, maybe even the 80s. And so the rehab mentality is very homogeneous, it's very structured, it's formatted, it's technically kind of easy to control. And so I think that's kind of the danger of that program, ironically, is that the rehab program has actually been used as a normal throwing program. More so, I think, in the professional world. Now, the college world, I have a hard time, and I know I'm subjective about this, but I have a hard time telling you more than a few schools in the country that don't either long toss or at least encourage their guys to stretch it out, I mean, without limitations. So, but in professional world, even there, it's getting, I mean, compared to 7, 8 years ago, it is very encouraging how many organizations now are, not just that they're going a long toss, but they're saying, hey, let's allow the kids to do what they need to do rather than maybe just impose a program on them.
And I guess that was the next question, was you see these standouts, Trevor Bauer, people to give testimonials to this. Is that changing the minds of maybe the people stuck in an older mindset or just going to the medical field to answer those questions? Are minds across baseball being changed in a big enough way to maybe protect these pitchers' arms from getting hurt? We've seen a lot of surgeries recently, increases, you know, but are people's minds being changed fast enough to kind of prevent some of that?
Well, not fast enough for any of us that really kind of know what's going on, so to speak. But compared to, like I said, 6, 7 years ago, the change has been actually relatively, I don't want to say miraculous, but it's been pretty exciting, to tell you the truth.
With your help,
I hope so.
Yeah,
I mean,
you
I'm
gotta
my
take
best.
credit where credit's due, yeah.
But yeah, there is a fear, you know, we talked about this when we talked before, there's a team, if their pitcher blows out his arm, they want to be able to say that they did everything they could to protect it. And in their mind, a lot of times, keep him from throwing the ball too far is their way of protecting a guy. You know, not realizing this actually does more harm than good.
Right.
But you'd rather break something being careful with it than break something being crazy with it. You know, I guess.
But to Jack's question earlier, this is where I do feel like, fortunately, that a lot of the professional world, and I think it's maybe more even the baseball people and the medical people, are saying, look, it's starting to get overwhelming. I can't say who it was, but there was a pretty well-known major league pitching coach that reached out to a friend of mine who was a well-known pitching coach in college, and basically saying, man, I'm hearing about weighted balls and this and long toss and all that, and you can tell he's really wanting to do research and get. And so I guess that's why, like, the Derek Johnsons of the world get hired out of Vanderbilt, Andy McKay gets hired, out of Sacramento City College. These guys are not coming out of colleges, and I think that what's happening is that the groundswell moving up is starting to really affect it. It's almost like power in numbers. And if you look at the Vanderbilts and the TCUs and the Cal State Fullertons and the Oregon States of the world, and on and on and on, I can list another 30 or 40 for you. What's happening is, a lot of those top round players and it could be a 10th round or 40th round, but a lot of kids are getting drafted at, let's face it, out of those programs. Well, they're coming out of those programs, I'm going to say have a PhD in long toss or arm care or arm training or arm conditioning and all the things, not just long toss. It might be weighted balls, it might be. So what's happening is these kids are coming out with these PhDs and coming into organizations, and they're like Bauer-ish. Yeah. They're very clear on what's making them successful, and they have a routine, and they love it, and they're gonna stand their ground on it now. And so I think what's happening is that power in numbers from all over the country, and even the high schools that they're coaching. You know, I'm at the Pitch of Palooza. It's amazing how many coaches I meet, and it actually gives me goosebumps where they'll say, hey, you know, we do your stuff, we do your bands, we do your long toss. And so I just, the pulse I really get is that, and it's also because it's organic and natural. Right. Long toss is something that is intuitive. It's what you feel good doing, and I think that's what the easiest sell out long. I don't want to come around and say, hey, I invented long toss, and I came up with this Albert Einstein idea. I mean, I think that what we've done to put a spin on it and give a format to it and a face and a progression, if you will, and a maintenance to it, I think has been really, really helpful. But I guess at the end of the day, coming back to this topic that we're really on, that's why I really feel some of the biggest changes have happened, as I feel like that the power numbers and the groundswell, and what's happening, for instance, I know with Nate Yeske, I'm starting to hear more and more at Oregon State that people are calling him to come in. And it's like, what? Because if you look at Oregon State and also start at TCU, I mean, is there a guy that throws under 92? And I'm not saying velocity is everything in life, but I mean, you have to start looking at programs that you can even say they recruit well, but let's face it, you can recruit well and guys can still get hurt. You can recruit well and guys can lose velocity. There's something going on when you look at the commonalities of a Vanderbilt or the Birdie brothers. They're pretty good testaments. You know, Nick started this around 11th or 12th grade. His brother, Zach, basically said, well, my big brother is doing pretty well at this, so I guess I'll do it. Well, is there a coincidence two brothers are throwing 100? Probably Zach's above 100 now. Nick may not want to hear that, but no, Nick's plenty happy with where he.
Let's be nice.
But whatever it is, I don't know who throws. I think Zach may have actually eclipsed Nick in his sophomore year. But I guess what I'm trying to say is that people may say, well, Alan doesn't, Jaeger Sports, maybe they don't have all the science and research. But I think that if you look at trending and repeatability, and I know a scientist is going to sit there and want to really beat it up and say, yeah, but where's the research and where's the data and the studies? But look, I can tell you from 25 years of doing it and really doing it myself, which is kind of interesting. But it's just the trending and the consistency of how players develop, and also how I listen to some of these coaches who I am grateful and have so much respect for. And when Scott Brown speaks, or Butch Thompson speaks, or Nate Yeske speaks, or Kirk Sarley speaks, I'm like, or John Savage, and all these great coaches that have implemented this, and this is year after year, right. And so anyway, so that was kind of a very, very long answer. The question I think was we went back on the tape. The question was actually pretty short, I'm sure.
It was a great answer though. You may not want to toot your horn, but you probably didn't invent long toss, you're right, but I think you are a pioneer in this regard, and you are kind of the go-to expert. And so, if you're watching this, Google around about Alan Jaeger, Jaeger. There he is. And that's Jaeger Sports. If you go to Baseball Essential and search for his name, you can find kind of a longer version of this interview that Josh Sadlock and I did with Alan a few months ago. I think we talked for 40 or 45 minutes. It was very interesting and entertaining. Alan's a fun guy to talk to, and so we appreciate you taking time tonight. Check out what Alan's doing. It's very interesting. If you have kids who are thinking about throwing a baseball like I do, I mean, that's why it hit me hard, because you need to find out what Alan's doing and do it right. Not because you're trying to make your kid a major leaguer, but because you want your kid to have a strong, healthy arm.
Exactly. Thanks again, Alan. Thank you for all you did for the players and everything else.
Appreciate you. Thanks, man.